Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope that you are well, or good afternoon or good evening, whatever time it may be for you. We are just getting things set up, getting things started. Gonna drop off a link in a few spots. And then we are gonna get rocking and rolling as we keep going with our scene, working on our campaign prep for the upcoming live stream campaign that is going to be run here on the channel. Play testing my FPS 5e supplement that I will be releasing later this year. Very excited about that. As well as lots of other free 5e content that you will be able to check out right over on the Discord channel. So if you're listening to these words either now or after the fact, and you're interested in getting access to all the content that I will be creating for 5e, absolutely free for all of the members of the channel, you can definitely check that out over there. Currently working on a revised version of the 5e Ranger, and it is nearing completion. That's actually my primary on the list item to work on today after I get all of the video things done at the end of the day today, and should hopefully be fully done with the Hunter subclass. If you do go over to the Discord channel and you decide to check that out in the 5e chat, there is the Hunter subclass that's already in there that I've done some revisions on, but it definitely, I don't know, it feels, at least where I have it at the moment, feels a little uninspired, and I kind of gave a little more thought to the way that I want to rework some things, and so I'm going to go back in and I'm gonna tweak that actually quite a bit. Again, some of the thoughts that are down in there right now are things that will stay, but a lot of it is very rough draft, right? So keep that in mind if you do decide to go check that out. But of course, it will always be appreciated if you decide to. All right. Got the last link I'm dropping off here, and then we will actually get started on working on things. Nice. All right. So we've got the new scene that we just started working on yesterday for the campaign. So this is actually going to be one of the villages of sort of refugees or holdouts here in the desert, a sort of oasis village that has secluded itself away and managed to keep itself safe from the invading army of giants, but that represents a resistance force or additional manpower, if you will, for the resistance force that the players might be able to recruit during the course of the campaign. And so we are just working on right now our sort of region map, if you will. That's what I like to call it. That's not a proper term for it, but essentially we are lining out the different regions based on height, and this is essentially what will act as our height controls for the scene as the players move about. Automatically adjusting their height and their sight lines so that everything stays nice and easy for our players. They don't have to worry about micromanaging what height their tokens are at, and they'll always be able to see the appropriate sight lines within the scene. So the village here is largely, would largely be comprised of Dragonborn, believe it or not. Would have been founded by a Dragonborn clan. The Dragonborn hold an interesting place in Evendel. That's the campaign world, my homebrew campaign world that I've actually had for quite some time. I've run several different campaigns in it over the years. And, you know, of course, like any homebrew campaign world, it's evolved some with each sort of iteration. This will be yet another evolution. But a lot of the backbone and that sort of stuff and the lore and the story pieces of it have stayed the same outside of changes that have actively been brought about by the players that have played in the campaigns that I have run in the setting. So that's how I typically prefer to operate. Is by allowing my players to actually sort of create the changes in the campaign world, right? Through the different campaigns that I run. And so the primary sort of history of the world, if you will, is I tried to... this was specifically made with 5e. Well, actually not 5e at the time. I'm trying to remember when I initially made this, but it was specifically made with D&D in mind, right? And so with that in mind, there are a lot of elements of that I tried to give my own sort of twist to, if you will. And one of those was the war between the dragons and the giants, which actually just recently finished and was lost by the dragons, who are now believed to be extinct in this world. This is also an element that I have used in other campaign worlds that I have run games for friends in and things like that. So a lot of times when I do a campaign, I will... It kind of depends. Sometimes I'm running it in my own world, right? A world sort of wholly of my creation. That's what this one will be. And then if I have the ability and time to commit to it, what I really like to do is actually create new campaign worlds with the players that I'm actually playing with. And we figure out a map, right? Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to do this because I want to just make another region. Same... or another shape. I'll use the appropriate Foundry term here. In the same region. But yeah, that's actually, that's my favorite process. When I have the time to be able to dedicate to it, because it is definitely the most intensive version. But essentially, you know, we'll utilize a map. I'll come up with a battery or series of questions. You know, we vote on and establish things like the technology level of the world and like what place magic has within the world and, what are the deities of that world like, etc., right? And then usually doing so with a game system in mind, be it D&D, be it World of Darkness, Stalker, etc., Legend of the Five Rings. Although I really do love the just default Legend of the Five Rings setting. Rokugan is probably, I feel like, one of my favorite fantasy settings. Unfortunately, the culture behind some of the card game, let's just say, evolved in a time where people were not as socially conscious. Not that people are hyper socially conscious today, but where people were certainly less socially conscious, or at least on the broad spectrum, than they are today. And so there are some aspects of the ecosystem of the card game for Legend of the Five Rings that are a little problematic. Like, how to describe? Culturally appropriative in like a, I don't want to say derogatory way, because it's not intended as that, farcical maybe. It's not cute. That's the best way I can really describe it. And unfortunately, given that and some of the problems that came about from the most recent re-release of the card game, and attempted re-release of the tabletop role-playing game, Legend of the Five Rings has once again died, for the most part, which is sad, because it is such a cool setting. Such a cool setting. Like I said, one of my favorites, and if for no other reason than just the, like, man, for anybody who is a fan of, like, political intrigue in their tabletop role-playing games, and you want a setting that is just absolutely rife with it, oh, man. Really cool, really fun. Interestingly enough, one of the longest running campaigns that I had was, so Legend of the Five Rings also has, apparently this is going to be a Legend of the Five Rings history stream. Didn't know that that's what this was going to be about today, but hey, here we are. And unless anybody else, clearly, if you're here and you have a conversation topic you would like us to touch on, please feel free to tell me to stop blathering away endlessly, and I'm more than happy to touch on and talk about whatever it is you guys would like to touch on and talk about. But yeah, the Legend of the Five Rings, really cool. Interestingly enough, it's gone through a lot of hands. So it was originally created by a company called AEG. I can't remember the original writer's name, unfortunately, who actually created the game itself. And I can't remember whether it started out as the... Would be interested to know if anybody has, if anybody is here in chat and has, excuse me, has the bandwidth to look this up. I would love to know what came first. Was it Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, or was it Legend of the Five Rings, the role-playing game? My first exposure to it was via the role-playing game, and actually because once upon a time, Wizards of the Coast actually owned the IP to it. So originally created by AEG, at one point in time, AEG it's a very weird custody of or chain of custody to follow. AEG sells at one point the rights to the role-playing game. Now, I will admit, I don't know whether this was strictly just a licensed product or whether Wizards actually just full on, and I believe that it's the latter of these two. I believe Wizards of the Coast just full on acquired the tabletop RPG rights to Legend of the Five Rings. Meanwhile, AEG continues to produce the card game. The card game has always been, or always was, the more profitable piece of Legend of the Five Rings. And so, of course, that was the piece that AEG wanted to hold on to, or certainly was not interested in licensing the rights to. And so, keep in mind, I'm very young at this point, but I remember it so well. I believe, I was in high school. Would have had to have been my, pretty early, freshman or sophomore year, one of the two, of high school. And I remember I was sick as an absolute dog. But we had to go. So I lived rurally at the time. Had not always, but we did at the time. And, we went to the closest major city for something. Not because I was sick. There was something we had to go into town for. Yes, I lived in the part of the world where you had to go into town for things. Actually, kind of still do to a certain extent. It's just the going into town for things now is a few miles away as opposed to an hour drive away. But regardless, getting totally off topic here. But yeah, no, I remember going to the gaming store, because I'm sick. My mom is trying to shut me up about feeling like crap. I had money that I had saved up, and that was what I did a lot of odd jobs and things like that as a kid so that I could save up money, so that I could, I don't know, go buy whatever nerdy shit that it was that I wanted to buy. In this particular instance, I don't know that I was specifically in the market for this book, but I just remember we went to the gaming store, Heroes and Fantasies, in San Antonio. They're actually still around today. And there was a book there called Oriental Adventures. Now, we can go into all the pieces of why the name itself is problematic, and I will tell you that the second edition version of Oriental Adventures, or I believe it was second edition, was set largely in Karatur. Karatur, for those who don't know or aren't familiar, if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, that takes place on the world of Toril, specifically in Faerun. Well, Faerun is one of the major continents of Toril, which Toril is the name of the world. Karatur is another one of the major continents of that world. And it is essentially just Forgotten Realms, East Asia. In some ways, it's sad, honestly, because it came about during a time where everything East Asian, at least that was being produced here in the U.S., And this is still somewhat true to this day, which is unfortunate, very unfortunate. But just like movies and pop culture, like all pop culture, East Asian influenced things that were U.S. produced back then were just, I mean, they were like caricatures. And that's where I got into the like some of the sort of culture surrounding the Legend of the Five Rings card game is appropriative in like not a cool way. There are a lot of really great people that play the card game that have nothing to do with any of these things, right? So don't hear what I'm not saying. But then some of the things that kind of go along with it, some of the practices that used to have at the tournaments and that sort of stuff, they were just, I don't know. They kind of made a caricature of East Asian culture, and it's unfortunate. And so, in any case, getting back to it, but I remember going to the gaming store and there was this book, Oriental Adventures, and it was for, at the time, 3.5 D&D, which that was the version of D&D at the time when I was in high school that I was DMing for my friends. And so I see this, and it's got rules for making samurai and all of this sort of stuff, and, you know, and it was just so neat. And it goes into like these different clans, right? And it gave all these like rules for talking about like these different sort of families or groupings of families of not specifically samurai, but, you know, that was definitely like a part of it. And they had new types of magic, and I mean, it was just all so cool, right? And it was so different than all of the just fighter, ranger, blah, 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 you know, that it had just been D&D for me at that point. You know, let's see, I'm in high school at that point, which means that I had already been playing D&D at that point and running DMing D&D primarily at that point for at least 5-6 years, right? So in any case, here's all this new exciting stuff. Like what? There's all these new classes. There's all these new spells. There's this really cool lore, but it felt like even at the time when I read it, it felt, I don't want to say half-baked, but it just felt like it wasn't complete. Well, the truth is because it wasn't. So they essentially made... It was so weird because there were two books. There was an actual Rokugan campaign setting that then eventually came out. That's where all the really good stuff came from. But that was intended for playing, because at the time, whereas now we have like 5e, right? And you have all these different campaign settings and things like that are released for 5e, different worlds, different attempts at different mechanics. I'll be making my own with the FPS 5e stuff, right? However, at the time back then, 3.5 ran off of what Wizards had coined as the D20 system. Now, keep in mind, I believe, interested in timelines, I should now actually go back and look this up, because it's like I remember all of these things happening, but the order in which all of them happening kind of gets a little jumbled. So when Wizards of the Coast released 3rd edition, they, I believe, were still self-contained. I don't believe that Wizards had actually been acquired by Hasbro at that point in time. As a matter of fact, I believe the purchase of Dungeons and Dragons IP from TSR, actually just the full-on buyout of TSR, which is like TSR's back now. And a lot of that has to do with because Wizards completely dissolved the name and the company and everything like that, and it didn't do anything to retain any rights to the TSR name. And so therefore a company called TSR can exist again. Just one of, I mean, I'm glad that that's the case, but just from a business practices standpoint, it's just one of the many ways that Wizards mishandles things from a business standpoint. It's even worse internally, and I say that with all the knowledge and experience to be able to say so firsthand. Keep in mind, I did not do any game design for them. Well, I have done some. At the time, I did not. At the time, I was just in sales for them. Anyways, I'm getting largely off topic. Not that there's a true topic. I'm kind of just rambling about my history and interesting histories of tabletop role-playing games centric around D&D and Legend of the Five Rings, since I got me off on that conversation topic. But yeah. So, like I said, pretty sure when Wizards of the Coast released 3rd edition D&D, they were still self-contained. I do not believe that they were owned by Hasbro at that point. I could be incorrect about that. If anybody has the ability to look that up and wants to provide that answer in chat, it would be greatly appreciated, because I would actually love to know. I can definitely look it up after the stream if not, but I want to keep rocking on this. But regardless, here you have 3rd edition, and then they released the Oriental Adventures book, and then like almost immediately after they released the Oriental Adventures book, they switched over to 3.5, which both changed and like didn't change a lot of things. In a way, this is anybody who followed the switchover or the change from D&D 5e 2014 to D&D 5e 2024, because Wizards has created that whole mouthful for us to say, right? It's a lot like that, where they were happy with 3rd edition at the time, sans a few components that needed some love, some TLC, some updating. Mostly less so much updating than they needed, just clarification. And so then 3.5 happened. Spoiler alert, they didn't do a very good job with the clarification then either. And actually simplifying the rules and utilizing the system that they had created for themselves in a very similar fashion to the way that Wizards handled the transition from 5e to 5e 2024. They have, nobody, oh my goodness. Wizards is the absolute king of creating a tabletop role-playing game system and then being the worst at creating content for it. I'm sorry. Now that I'm thinking back about all of this, because had 3.5 actually been what it was supposed to be, and also because 3.5 was about to go away, and 3.5 was very good, and 3.5 had, oh my god, 3.5 had more content than you can possibly imagine. Like, I'll tell you what, it was nuts. I mean, they had like a new book coming out every month. Like every month for forever. I mean, the bloat was insane. Like I had at the time, they have since all gone by the wayside because, I have run into over the course of my life some times where financial woes and things like that forced me to sell off my 3.5 D&D book collection. But dude, I mean, it was insane. I wish I still had it, if for no other reason than just to be able to demonstrate the sheer volume of it. Because I had it all at one point in time, and it was like an entire bookshelf. Just an entire bookshelf. Crazy. That was taken up strictly by D&D 3.5 books. It was Nutter Butters. But it was also really cool. But like when I look back and I think about it now, I'm just like, my God. But yeah, so long story short, 3.5 comes out, and then you have all of the content in the Oriental Adventures book that like jives with D&D, but just enough, like jives with 3rd edition. But it's just enough off with the changes from 3.5 that they decide to then release the Rokugan campaign setting to update and clarify a lot of those things. And then they actually released a ton of books for the Rokugan campaign setting. Those are actually so those are actually the only 3.5 books that I held on to because I loved that setting so much. So I actually have all of my Legend of the Five Rings D20 system is technically what they actually released them as, because these got released as a full-on, this is the D20 system version of Legend of the Five Rings. And it was great. And so anyways, that was one of the most long-standing campaigns that I ever ran, was the Legend of the Five Rings 3.5 campaign. And then I really loved the updates that Legend of the Five Rings did. So we talk about custody chains being weird. So then what happens? So what happened was eventually Wizards either sells back or loses. I will look up and clarify which one of those things is the case. But buys back or loses, or sells back or loses the IP to Legend of the Five Rings. So they can't produce any more content. And it was around the same time that the transition to 4th edition was happening, aka Final Fantasy Tactics, the tabletop role-playing game. It's not D&D. Like it's got the name, it's got all the class names, but it's a tabletop miniatures game. Although, like I said, it's actually like they basically just made D&D 4th edition into chainmail. So to a certain extent, if you want to trace back, D&D's DNA to when it existed as chainmail before any Dungeons and Dragons ever even existed, then it's the most D&D version of D&D. We've talked about that here on the channel before. But yeah, it's so they lose or sell the rights back to AEG, one of the two. AEG then releases a new edition of the Legend of the Five Rings tabletop role-playing game. Meanwhile, the card game is still the card game. still doing the card game things. And then eventually, I believe AEG just full on, it was around the time of, I think that it was fourth edition, the fourth edition of Legend of the Five Rings. The RPG unto itself, not just as a setting for, use in the D20 system, that sort of thing. That AEG, if memory serves, I think that they full on went under. I don't know that AEG exists anymore. I'm pretty sure they're gone. And Fantasy Flight Games, at a bare minimum, acquires the licensing to Legend of the Five Rings. And they might have just acquired the whole company. The truth is I don't actually remember. But if you are not familiar, Fantasy Flight Games has a whole series of card games that they release as what are called living card games, as opposed to collectible card games. And so the whole point of these is meant to be a much more approachable style of competitive play card game. And it's actually a pretty cool model, and it has worked really well for them with some IPs, not as much with others. The IP that it worked the best for, I believe, was probably Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones definitely the Fantasy Flight Games Game of Thrones card game was pretty cool. I only really got to play it a handful of times. I never purchased the cards myself. I had some friends that played, and I checked it out, with their stuff. And so okay. We got that there. And then that's going to be at the same height as this spot over here. So let me go ahead and put that into the same region. But yeah. And so they release Fantasy Flight Games, being the they in this scenario. They release a living card game version of Legend of the Five Rings. And prior to the re-release of the Legend of the Five Rings card game as a living card game and moving away from the collectible card game model, they release Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition. You can imagine, being that it was a contemporary with what is potentially the most successful iteration of D&D in D&D's history, with 5e, and both being called 5th edition, how difficult it could be to find resources and information on that, because the minute you plug 5th edition in conjunction with RPG into any search engine anywhere, seems the CCG for Legend of the Five Rings was released in 1995, 1997, then WotC is owned by Hasbro since 1999. Okay. Also, Sudan isn't the largest country in Africa. It's Algeria. Oh, okay. Interesting. So yeah, for context, I am actually not the one typing those little things in chats, but that is good to know. So that is just clearly, or at least I hope it's clear, that is just a chat bot that I essentially had because I wanted there to be, I don't know, something engaging to go along with the commercial breaks, because I appreciate people actually sticking through, commercial breaks to try to help support the channel, that sort of deal. But yeah, so that's what that is. And so it looks like AI got it wrong. But thank you for letting us know that Algeria is the largest country in Africa, Africa being a continent and not a country. But how are you today, Ilya? Also, thank you for looking that up. I appreciate it. So 1999 is when... Okay, so if Hasbro bought WotC in 1999, I guess the release of 3rd edition D&D did coincide with Hasbro's purchase of the company. Because I got my D&D 3rd edition player's handbook at the end of my 8th grade year of school. And that was it would have been 2000 when I finished 8th grade. And so it would have been 1999. At the start of that 8th grade year. So interesting. There you go. So yeah, I guess Hasbro owned WotC has been responsible for maybe my favorite edition of D&D. There was a lot of problems with 3.5. Don't hear what I'm not saying. There's a lot of clunky nonsense. I don't know. The best way I can explain it is it's almost like for me, right? And for everybody, it's different. Doing good today. Thanks. Didn't have good geography grades in school for nothing. Well, hell yeah, man. Thank you for correcting AI chatbots. Incorrect geography knowledge. Appreciate it. Always appreciate geographic correctness. And I say that not facetiously. But yeah, so you go through all the rigmarole of AEG gets the rights back. They end up then selling to Fantasy Flight at one point in time. Well, not at one point in time. Fantasy Flight owns all the rights still to Legend of the Five Rings. And unfortunately, well, at least for me, I would say for all of us, there could be lots of people out there that have zero interest in Legend of the Five Rings whatsoever. But at least, unfortunately for myself, they're just sitting on them now and not actually producing anything. And so, unfortunately, my favorite tabletop RPG IP is currently just rotting in the backlogs of Fantasy Flight Games' catalog of products, so to speak. And that's the sad part, is they did such limited printings. So I attempted to actually collect all of the 5th edition Legend of the Five Rings books. I have a fair amount of them. But unfortunately, they did very limited printings of most of them. And yeah, actually, a lot of them you just cannot get anymore. I mean, unless you can find it somewhere secondhand. And I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole. I'm so invested now in creating my own 5e content, retrofitting 5e into, I don't know, into what I feel like 5e should be, right? And so this goes back to some people may feel like 5e is absolutely perfect the way that it stands right now. But for me, it's missing honestly a lot. I feel like it feels, having played it now, having DM'd it now for years. I mean, because I started DMing 5e like right after it came out, pretty much. So that was in, that was in 2014 when that came out, clearly. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 2014 and 2024. So 10 years now? No, it's 2026. 12 years now. And I've run some 2024 stuff too, and it's like, it does make improvements, and I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. Like, 2024 is better, in my personal opinion. Some people will not agree. Than 2014 rule set. But for myself, it still doesn't really have any mechanical depth. Because, and really and truthfully, the reason why I focus on that, here's why I would focus on mechanical depth as my reasoning. Because role-playing depth, while there are things that different tabletop RPG systems can do to incentivize that, right? At the end of the day, the depth of role-playing in a game is going to be left up to the players. Like, you can have just as much depth to your role playing in a game like D&D as you can have in a game like GURPS, which is incredibly rules heavy and simulationist. It all just comes down to how people are willing to play the characters. And so when the depth is controlled strictly by your player base and not really by the system itself, like I said, the system can do things to incentivize that, but it's not actually giving you role-playing depth. The players, the GM, that sort of stuff, they're the ones who are creating the role-playing depth. Well, you can have the same level of depth of role-play in any system. So at that point in time, the only thing that the system is actually doing for you is providing you the mechanics. And for myself, I feel like it lacks the mechanical depth that I'm looking for. Now, on the flip side of that, you have something like Pathfinder, where it has tons of mechanical depth, but it takes it a little too far. It doesn't need to be, the game just doesn't need to be that math heavy, right? Now, I have heard in Pathfinder 2e, I've looked at a lot of it, and it doesn't really feel like it's changed that much. To myself, I'll give that caveat. To myself, it does not feel like it has changed that much. Okay, I'm trying to figure out heights here as I'm looking at this. It still feels like it's incredibly, like, it's too micromanagey. And so it's basically like, I feel like somewhere between 5e and Pathfinder, the truth lies. Like, right? Like, there is a version of essentially 5e that gives the mechanical depth of something that I'm looking for. And so that is my goal to create, because with what I intend to create for 5e, and why I'm going through and I'm revising the Ranger, and we'll be going through and revising the other classes, is it all just, to me, feels very the same. Like, to a certain extent, the classes even don't really feel like they give you that much differentiation in identity. And then even within each of the classes, the subclasses don't feel, to myself, and this is different for everybody, they don't really feel that transformative. Like, I don't really feel like if I play a war cleric, a trickery cleric, a life cleric, outside of the choices that I make as a player, I don't really feel like those subclasses, for example, are going to provide me with differentiating experiences or with differentiating enough experiences. And part of that is, I think, maybe because I'm spoiled by something like 3rd edition and 3.5, because, for example, I actually played in a campaign. It's one of the few campaigns. It was the only 3.5 campaign that I ever played in. And the reason why I think I forget about it sometimes is because it was a play-by-post campaign. So keep in mind, there was an age in the internet where VTTs didn't exist. Believe it or not. YouTube didn't exist. I remember that part of the internet too. In any case, Twitch didn't exist. All these things that I'm interfacing with right now. However, there was a point in time where play-by-post, which was essentially you were playing D&D on a forum, right? And you were playing the entire game by message board post. And so it was a play-by-post campaign that I played in. Like I said, one of the very few, not very few, is legitimately the only 3.5 campaign that I got to play in and not be the DM, was an all-cleric campaign. And I'm just using cleric as the example here, but this same thing was true of every class in 3.5. You could make a party of all rangers, clerics, fighters, you name it, and go such drastically different directions with them and things like that, that they were all completely different characters. And to me, 5th edition does not currently offer enough differentiation between the different subclasses that it offers to feel like, outside of just the role-playing and characterization elements, which again are controlled strictly by the player, not actually created by anything mechanical, the game does not actually provide much like depth and differentiation. Sure, you get a few abilities that are different and things like that, and that's cool. But it feels like you could maybe get away with 2 clerics, for example, in a party that actually felt mechanically different from one another in the way that they operated, and then you're probably done. And even then, with the way that 5e is set up, there's just, I guess my part of my fatigue is that there's still just too many default better and worse choices. And so it's like, if I'm a cleric, and I'm, like I said, I'm just using cleric as an example. It's like, after a certain point, if I'm a cleric, why am I not casting Spirit Guardians? Like, show me any incentive that I have to basically do anything else but be a human Beyblade that throws out a healing word when a party member goes down. And it's like, that's, from a gameplay standpoint, that's cleric. And some people like that. Some people want the role kind of like that, sort of rigidly defined for them. And yes, you can do other things. Not saying you can't, you know, don't hear what I'm not saying. That is not the only way to play a cleric ever, but it is the most optimum way, basically, to play a cleric. And so it's like, when other choices are so mechanically like disadvantageous comparatively, like why use them? You know? And so that's, I guess, really my goal for the 5e content that I'm going to be creating is honestly just feel like putting some life back in the campaign. And not to say that there aren't a lot of other great third-party publishers and things like that that have done a much better job. I mean, honestly, all of the coolest content for D&D, even back in the 3.5 and 3rd edition days. And I think that maybe that's why so many books were coming out so often for 3.5 is because you had a hyper robust third party content creation ecosystem. I mean, companies like Kobold Press only exist because they started off creating content for the D20 system, aka the system that 3rd edition and 3.5 were built on. I mean, Paizo only exists because of that same thing, because they took over and started publishing Dragon Magazine for Wizards of the Coast at the time, so that Dragon Magazine could continue to exist. Green Ronin Publishing had tons of stuff out there. They actually had some of the coolest like species, and at the time they were all called races, but some of the coolest species out there were stuff from like crazy Green Ronin splat books and that sort of stuff. And so you had all of this super cool content that was coming out from all of these other creators. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of keep up, they didn't really have a whole lot of choice. Okay, I am going to create one median region here. But yeah, they didn't really have a whole lot of choice but to, publish en masse. And I'm kind of starting to wonder if we're not seeing that same thing again. And then part of it too is the fact that, I mean, honestly, just Wizards and Hasbro, their business practices have gotten significantly, like, they are some of the least consumer friendly and some of the most, just in general, anti-consumer business practices out there. And I say royal we, at least here in the U.S., whether we want to bury our heads in the sand and admit it or not, we live in an oligarchy. Although soon, who knows, soon it might be a monarchy. Oh, I don't want to think about that. Anyway, but right now, large in part, money controls everything. And so really and truthfully, as a citizen living in the U.S., the only true way that I have to vote or, I guess, show my approval, disapproval, etc. of the companies and their business practices and things like that is by voting with my money, right? And thankfully, luckily, I can't believe that they did this because to a certain extent, Wizards of the Coast has actually handed over the keys to their own demise. And they're almost daring some of us, anybody, and I, am going to be one of the people who wants to take up this mantle because I feel like we can do it better than they have done it. And they have literally delivered the keys to their own like destruction in the space of 5e content creation by putting everything into the Creative Commons. I mean, not everything. There are some subclasses you can't touch. There are some spells that they've already created that you can't touch. But you can make up whatever you want based on the rules, right? And so it's all about like actually putting in the time and effort to create good content, and not just because the biggest issue that I have with a lot of homebrew, I love all the ideas. Like, the ideas are never the issue. And some people come up with the coolest stuff from a conceptual idea standpoint. So many people come up with so much cool homebrew. But a lot of times homebrew, from my standpoint, tends to kind of read a lot like a wish list of stuff that they want to see in a game, right? Or stuff that they want to see attached to some class or something like that. And they don't really think about making sure that other subclasses still have their own unique spaces to operate in and things like that. And so it just, a lot of it tends to be like way overpowered. And I'm all for powerful characters. I mean, Twilight Cleric exists. Twilight Cleric's still the best cleric in the game. You know. But gotta have some kind of balance to it. All right. So, now I've done the regions. This kind of informs. So the next step that I'm going to take here with our map, now that I've laid these guys out down here, is I'm going to slap down the next layer. So this is, like we talked about yesterday, this is actually going to be a 3-tier map, or, you know, 3-level map. So my highest point here is 25 feet in elevation, and then I want to give it another 10 feet of clearance off of that. So I'm actually going to come in here and edit this now, because now I know, right? So this is why I just kind of set arbitrary numbers originally. And so 35 feet is actually where I want to end this level. And so we'll set that there. I'm going to go ahead and leave this at 80 until the next level that I do establishes otherwise. And then we will come over here to our handy dandy tile browser. And map files. We'll choose file. See, and this is the part that's sad to me. So this was the map that I was originally going to use, and it shows it to me here in the tile browser. I wonder if I can drag and drop it as a tile. What happens if I just do this? Does it work? No, it disappears instantly. Is it even there at all? Okay, well, if it is, I'm going to hit delete, hopefully get rid of it. But yeah, it's just sad to me, because it's like I can see this here, so clearly Foundry is capable of rendering this, but this was the like 300 DPI one that Foundry just says no. I don't really get it. Okay, and then this is going to be the next level here. Excuse you? What do you mean I don't? I'm the only user. All right. Give me a moment. Okay. We'll return to setup. Maybe we'll return to setup. We'll log out. Now we'll return to setup. Okay. Did it just time out? I have had this. Okay. Boom. Migrating? What do we migrating? I haven't updated anything. Yes. Yes, chat. We'll flush it. Cool. Unpause. Okay. Regions. Still doing region things. Okay. So let me go in and make sure before I move on to the next level that I've got, because yeah, I just kind of went ahead and because it was easy to do. No, I want token enters, not moves in. Do I still have that? Nope. That was the title for today's stream. So let me go grab the script that I need. No. Okay. Let's try this once more with feeling. There we go. Team. Ta-da. I don't know why I was looking at that. Yeah, I want behaviors. Okay, so that's there. Are you correct? No. There we go. Now we'll do this one. Really? My goodness. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, cool. So now, next up to bat, we will come to the tile controls. Go to our tile browser, map files, desert, nope, up. Thank you, settlements. Okay, and now we're going to choose the correct one. Okay, cool. Now it imported correctly. But I don't actually want to do that yet. I want to come back over here, make sure this is on, and that I have tier 2 selected. And now I want to do that because I want to establish the heights that this exists in. Yes. Now, this is reminder to self. If I say it out loud now, I'll be more likely to remember it later. But also, if anybody catches that I don't do this while you're hanging out here with me on stream, Please remind me that because I have this height set not to what it will be, I'm going to have to go back and change the top and bottom heights of this tile. But first, let's get it lined up. So that is pretty close there. And then we should be able to, use this guy to, so this is probably 23 by 15. Ta-da, cool. Tiles are now overlapping. And then we can go back to our region controls. And then I'm going to go ahead and filter out everything below 35 feet. Cool. All right. And then there are a few different ways to move up to this level. So I now want to make sure. I never actually set the height of this. So this needs to have a top height of 5. Cool. Good reminder. Okay, so there's here. I thought there was one other. Okay. Let's get rid of the tile browser. If I go down here, up. Oh no, I guess that's just like a little alcove. Up. Okay, so there's the other space where it goes up. But does that go all the way up to... Okay, no. So this is that there. Okay, so this level here will be what is at 35 feet. Cool. We like it. So, in that case, actually, let me unfilter for a moment just to make sure I don't have anything selected. Okay, cool. I do not. Oh, you know what? I know what I'm missing and why it seems so crazily quiet. I was so busy just running my mouth endlessly. Forgive me. Maybe I caffeinated too much this morning as opposed to not enough. It's a delicate balance, caffeine addiction, dependency, however you want to look at it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I had the music off, because otherwise, I let the music fill the void, and then that doesn't really do much for the YouTube video, now does it? Because it's not part of that. But yeah, Ilya, I'm intrigued. When did you start playing D&D? Did you start with 5th edition? Questions thrown at me just as I come back. Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had just come back. My apologies. But that said, do we count BG3 as 5e? I mean, yeah, for sure. I would count BG3 as 5e. Is BG3 where D&D started for you? More or less, yes. I knew it existed, but didn't take an interest prior. Oh, okay. Well, that's really cool. I mean, honestly, though, I never would have. So, for anybody else listening or watching this after the fact and seeing the chat roll, if you're watching the VOD on Twitch, Ilya was in a D&D campaign that I ran for some time. We had a decent little run to start before scheduling, as scheduling often does, decided to bring an end to the campaign. However, I never would have guessed, actually. I don't think I ever would have guessed that you were even remotely new to D&D at all when you played in that campaign. So you took to it very quickly. Okay, so in that case, I asked this of Vanity and of I asked this of Vanity and of Golden Fire yesterday. Yeah, of course, man. You're welcome. No, I love, like, legit. That was one of the campaigns where, like I was talking about before, I like to, when I can, do like a whole custom setting and everything like that for my D&D campaigns. That was one of the ones where I got to. Ilya actually went so far as to create this really cool species. Oh my god, whose name is going to elude me. Let me go back and look at my notes, because I still have that for forever. Let's see here. The Thamisen, they were super cool. They were an aquatic species and everything like that. He came up with a lot of like really cool lore for them. This whole like really complex, rich like societal structure. It was awesome. And that's part of why I love being able to do like an actual custom campaign setting per campaign, because that's one of the things. If I could give any one piece of advice to DMs, it's don't be so attached to your own ideas. And I know that sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth when I'm like, I can build D&D better than wizards can. It's not actually what I'm saying, nor is it like what I think. D&D 5e is amazing at being approachable. Like, it does what it set out to do better than a lot of systems do what they set out to do. But I'm looking for something with a little more richness, and I don't think it delivers on that. So that's not to say that it is terrible. It just doesn't do what I want it to do, you know? But yeah, no, don't be attached to your own ideas as a DM. Your players will come up with some of the coolest ideas that you never even thought of. And especially, like, my favorite is when players spout out theories about what's going on in the campaign at the table, and it's not something that you thought of at all, but their idea might be cooler than yours. And like, don't be afraid to shift and change like whatever the thing is, because then you give the players this really cool moment where they're like, aha, I knew it. I knew this thing that I said 5 sessions ago, or whatever, you know, the case may be in that situation. Like, so just don't be afraid to not be so incredibly attached to the ideas that you have for your campaign. You're not writing a script. You know, you're not writing a book. Not saying you can't go write a book or you can't go write a script, but if that's what you want to do, go do those things. And the beauty of tabletop role-playing games in general, and also D&D, is the collaborative storytelling aspect of it. And I was lucky enough to have Ilya in one of my games. I had no idea that he was new to D&D. He came up with some really cool stuff, really dope elements of that campaign setting that were going to be shaping a lot of what was going to be happening in the future of that campaign that unfortunately we never got to. I don't know. I think I am quietly hopeful at some point we will get back to that game. My time is much freer now, but I know that the schedules of everybody else that was in that game doesn't quite line up. And I don't know whether I could bring myself to run that game with other than the original cast, so to speak. But okay, so now that, but what I was getting at before, is that, talked to Vanity and Golden about this yesterday when they were here in chat. Ilya, what is your favorite D&D class and why? Honestly, I'm not quite sure yet. You know what? That is fair. That is fair. All right. Well, then, what's your favorite class in Baldur's Gate? Because the classes in Baldur's Gate and actual tabletop D&D do work fairly differently, mostly just because the itemization in Baldur's Gate is so different than normal tabletop. I did mention that I like Horizon Walker a lot. Wouldn't say it's a favorite ever. Oh yeah, no. Horizon Walker is definitely one of the cooler Ranger subclasses, and a little bit of inspiration for one of the subclasses that I am creating for the revised Ranger that I am working on. A little bit. Not a one for one by any means, but so here's a question. If you could see one new class or subclass added to D&D that does not already exist, or to Baldur's Gate, your choice. Take it with whichever direction you choose. What would you want that to be? So for BG3, it would probably be Rogue and Wizard combination. I like the versatility that both provide with skills and spells. Could be a decent martial with thief, for sure. Yeah, I definitely like the whole. Like I like a lot of the. I like to call them like set left-handed or southpaw like mage builds where it's like you're mostly a spellcaster, but you've got thief so that you can like cast a spell and then make like two offhand weapon attacks. I actually feel like that feels the most gishy spell sorty sort of any combination you can do. Oh, that's right, because now it wants to convert them all back to stairs. Well, you're not stairs. And go back to your old color too. I liked it better. Ta-da. Um, I like clerics a lot from an RP standpoint. Yeah, clerics do, and I think that's why that's the example that I tend to go to a lot. Is it's like my three favorite classes in D&D are all for very different reasons, and it's cleric, ranger, and rogue. Okay. But yeah, just based on the fact that you're, I mean, I won't say religious zealot, but just based on the fact that as a cleric, you are a religious figure, kind of builds in a lot of RP from like the concept of the class. Okay, so you're at 35 foot. Okay, so next level there, same height here. Just doing some quick checks to see what needs to go on to the next level here. Right. Unselect. And on to the next. Right, so this one will be... Ah, yes, another ad break. Still considering getting rid of those. altogether. I mean, I guess eventually they will do something, but for now, they feel like they do so little. Like, I'd almost rather the channel just be... I don't know if there's a way to make the channel just ad-free, though. That would actually be my ideal. I think that, like, Twitch is going to do it anyways, so it's like I might as well set it up, because at least then, if it's doing it based on my choices, I get something for it. Right. Then this is going to be part of that too. And for new classes question, don't really have ideas for new D&D subclasses. Haven't really explored what is given. For BG3 editions, maybe War Magic Wizard for sure. There's thankfully a few mods that add pretty much all the unrepresented 5e subclasses for a few classes. Yeah. No, I mean, with mods, you can actually pretty much play with everything that's actually in 5e as it stands now. I mean, right down to the Blood Hunter and everything, if that's your jam. My issue with the Blood Hunter is it always feels like conceptually the Blood Hunter is super cool, but it... Again, I have the same problem with it that I guess I have with a lot of them, is it just feels like the concept is great, but it just doesn't quite deliver on what the class feels like it's supposed to be doing. But then again, the whole thing was a class that was homebrewed for Vin Diesel when he came to like play D&D with Critical Role, so it's hard to ask too terribly much of that. Right, and then this will be our 45 foot. So yeah, definitely going to have to reduce the height on this level. I knew that I would. I knew I was going to end up having to reduce the height on all of these levels. Pretty much when I just arbitrarily set them at like 40, but better safe than sorry. For a while, I felt that Hunter, Monster Slayer subclasses do the same thing conceptually. Yeah, the Monster Slayers... I never understood of all the subclasses that they could have given us in Xanathar's when that one came out. I think, or was that Atasha's? God, I can't even remember now. But yeah, I felt like Monster Slayer was like both... I don't know how to describe it. Like, it did things that I felt like... Like, I feel like Hunter should have just been Monster Slayer, and then the two subclasses should have essentially been combined. Like, I feel like Hunter is just all combat mechanic stuff and kind of lame combat mechanic stuff. And then Monster Slayer has, like, some really cool conceptual things, but they just kind of, in practice, like, don't really work very well. I would have liked to see a hybrid of the two, and I feel like that, you could have just called that the Monster Slayer, and that would have been the way to go about it. But that's just my personal take on it. But yeah, I get what you mean. Like, it does feel like they fill the same conceptual space. It's like, well, how many hunters / slayers of monsters do we need? Monster Hunter, eh? Yeah, right. There you go. You know, I have always, like, wanted to. Have you played the Monster Hunter games? No? Okay. Because it's one of those things that I feel like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the Monster Hunter series has always looked so cool to me, and there's like a part of me that kind of really wants to play and try it. But I don't really know where to begin is really kind of where my issue is. 'Cause like, I feel like I was always in the wrong place at the wrong time to be able to, like, jive with Monster Hunter and actually be able to get into it just naturally. Because I remember when the original, like, the Monster Hunter, the very first one came out. But if memory serves, it was on PlayStation 2. And it had this weird, like, online component, and it was, like, really actually hard to do stuff without that. And online anything with the PS2 was hot garbage. Like, the fact that they said it had online capabilities was kind of a little bit of a joke. But, I mean, it did, by all technical definitions of that thing. But that's about it. So, yeah, I never got to play the original. And then it just, like, completely was off my radar. And I think it was because all the Monster Hunter games for a while, I think, were still coming out on PlayStation, or they were coming out on Nintendo stuff. And there was a long time where it was like the only gaming system I had was an Xbox 360. And I was also like playing mostly FPS games at the time, which I still love FPS games. And man, I still say, even after all the debacles with Battlefield 6, if they came out with a Battlefield Bad Company 2 remake tomorrow, and you could give me that exact same game with just updated graphics, oh my god. I had some of the most fun that I have ever had playing a video game with friends, playing that game. All right, we've got these guys. Let's go in. Let's plug in our macros. Not macros. They're scripts. We're scripting. What script did it... Oh, this is the... Yeah. Because you thought you were stairs when I first made you. Because I did not uncheck a box. All right, so then let's throw this script in the trash. And now let's put our script in there. Okay. That. But yeah. I feel like I need to put in some effort to figuring out where I should start the Monster Hunter series. I suppose I should just ask Hobo. He loves that game series. I love all the builds that he does, like, inspired off of it, too. They seem really fun, which also just reinforces why I feel like I want to play the game. Wait, did I not put it? I thought I... Oh, this is 40. Ha ha ha. I did put the script in there for the last one. Not that one. Okay. Not update. Behaviors. This. Go. Awesome. Right. Script updated. Let us see. Functionally, Hunter and Monster Slayer kind of, can I deal with a lot of mobs versus focused on single enemy? But that could just be the same subclass with different options on level ups, and again, conceptually similar. Yeah, no, exactly. That's kind of the, like, I feel like every feature that Monster Slayer gave you could have just been one of the optional choices on Hunter. Like, it felt like they came up with, like, new stuff to add to the Hunter, and, like, felt like they couldn't just reprint the same subclass with different options, so they were just like, oh, well, let's make it a whole new one. Maybe don't, Wizards. Thanks. Maybe don't do that. Would be great. All right. So we've got that now. We've got all of the levels in the appropriate places and our regions all set up, so that means we are ready to now move on to Tier 3. All right, which means it is now time for another tile. And we will get to the third layer of our map. Handy dandy tile browser. And we will find the top tier here. Yes. And we'll just drag and drop you on the map. Ta-da! And then we know that we want this at 2300 by 1500. Ta-da. All right. Third layer of the map in place. So let me go ahead and look at, I need to go here and then, yep. Okay. So I'm going to bring this down. So the top level is 45, is the highest height of anything on this level. So we're going to make this 55 at a ceiling. Give it 10 feet of clearance before we're looking at the next level up. And then we will go to tier 3. We can go ahead and edit this. And that means we can make this 55. Boom. Now we select here, which means we will need to make the actual height on this 55. Hello, Neko. Welcome to the chat. So far, so good. I hope work was good. I'm sorry. No cuties today. Actually, yeah, we'll just, well, it's not going to need to be that high, but we'll leave it alone for right now. Not a single doggo. Oh, no. That is sad. It's like the #1 benefit of working in the industry that you work in. It's getting to see cute doggos. If no cute doggo, then why work? No, I'm just kidding. Because money. Unfortunately, a thing we all need. I saw some Karens, though. Oh, yeah, I believe it. I mean, working in anything retail-based, unfortunately, you are likely to run into the Karen. Okay. I need to look at you there. Okay. So that actually is not the level below. This side is also not the level below. Okay, so that is actually an overhang there. Retail is the front line against the Karen menace. I'm just now imagining like one of those like military propaganda posters that's very like I don't know, with like the hard lines and like the red and white like shading and that sort of stuff, and then like, but rather than like standing there with like rifles, they're all standing there like holding up price guns. The front line against the Karen menace. We need you to fight the Karen. Yeah, right, exactly. The front line needs you. Standing there in like an apron and a... Or like one of those like barcode scanner guns in everybody's hand. Yeah, Illy and I were just discussing favorite classes in Baldur's Gate / D&D and classes that we feel like should exist that currently don't. Any thoughts to weigh in with either? Like a real ninja class. Okay. So real ninja class or ninja is rogue subclass? Let me throw some shurikens. Yeah, for sure. Okay, actually, let me unfilter this for a moment. Okay, I don't have anything selected. Cool. Boom. So now we can filter back. Real class. I think like the FF14 style or something could have some pretty cool subclasses, I feel. Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because you could have one that's like, you know, one that's like your, you know, magical ninja shinobi style sort of deal. You could have one that is more focused strictly on the like the thrown weapon combat. You could have one that does like sabotage type stuff. Almost acts as like a debuffer. I could see that. So what's your favorite current class? Fire Emblem Fates actually had some cool takes on a shinobi class that would translate well. Okay. Favorite in BG3 vanilla is sorcerer because it's busted. Yeah, for sure. I mean, quicken spell, twin spell. It's hard to argue with the power of those two features. Like, did really like the modded dancer though, like a bard but more flexible. Okay. Yeah, the dancer class. I conceptually it's cool, but I feel like when you're giving additional actions to enemies or to allies, it's very powerful. Like a lot more powerful than I thought it was going to be until we started playing with it. Nerfed myself by being an idiot? How so? I don't remember that part. Oh, Felt like you could have been more efficient with it. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, you just, but I mean, that all, like, that's so circumstantial. Like, instead of just Oprah giving out turns, yeah, for sure. I feel you. And you get an extra action, and you get an extra action, and you get an extra action. Yeah, so for anyone not following along, or for anybody who is unaware, there is a dancer class mod for Baldur's Gate 3, is what Neko is referring to, and it is essentially a Baldur's Gate 3 take on the dancer class from Fire Emblem. Which was cool, but to me felt super powerful because extra actions are awesome. Actually, dancer supporting thief rogue is pretty powerful. Yeah. This will be 55 feet. Get a bajillion actions. Yeah, I mean, certainly the double action, double bonus action has some pretty powerful implications. Although I think, yeah, I mean, if you're really just trying to go absolute Nova, I mean, the best case use for that is to have a jack ton of, like, sorcery points on somebody and then just, like, quad fireball, right, at that point? Or something along those lines. WotC better credit me when they make that a thing. I somehow don't think they will make that a thing. I don't think you'll ever see anything more powerful than abilities that allow you to allow somebody to, like, make an attack or movement as a reaction. I don't think that they'll ever full on do, like, get another action. Right. And we'll get this side over here. I don't know. I could see it, especially if the goal is to make it more approachable and make money. Yeah, well, but that's exactly why I think they won't do it. Because, you know, I think they're too timid to put an ability that powerful in the game, and understand how to balance it. And that's in actual tabletop, at least. I mean, because essentially you're granting action surge to another player, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's basically what that ability is doing. So it's like, it's not necessarily that busted, or as busted in tabletop as it is in Baldur's Gate. I have a feeling if they did it, they would only go so far as to, like, they would probably make it or give it the same kind of stipulations that they did haste, where it's like you get an extra action, but it can only be used to do X, Y, or Z, right? So they probably won't let it cast a spell. Oh, ad break. So I'm talking to nobody. All right. Well, the ads are back, or the ads are over now. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I was saying is, yeah, I just don't think that Wizards, I don't think that they'll ever put something that powerful as a support ability. Because I think they're too worried about people complaining about how easy it would be to potentially abuse it, right? And I think that they're terrified of a world in which, like, I feel like the WotC devs sometimes are just, like, running scared, but that's a whole other story. That probably has more to do with the internal workings of the company. But at the same time, it just seems like they're very much hesitant to put powerful abilities or operate outside of their sort of established parameters of win X, then Y, that sort of thing. So, and I think that they're terrified of a world in which somebody could have a dancer, right, in the party, let's say, if they made this class, and then that dancer gives somebody an extra action, that person then action surges, you know, and then they're also, like, hasted or something like that on top of it. Like, I just think that they're terrified of a world in which that exists. So if they did, they would probably, I feel like, put a lot of the same stipulations on it that they do with haste. And I guess that's part of my fatigue with the way that D&D's design has gone, even in 2024, is it just feels like there's such reticence to tread or even attempt to tread new ground. And it just feels like they've made a business out of just rehashing the same stuff over and over and reselling it to us. And I think the tabletop gaming community deserves better. Personal take. Okay, so ready for the next tier. Let's see here. Let's unselect you. And then I'll want this side 65. Okay, so that'll be a tier 1, 2, 3. So 2. Three. So then this is just going to come up at 55. Okay, so I don't need to do this over here. Okay. Or come up at 60. Okay. So then... on to the next. Getting lots of reds and purples and maroons this time. Interesting. I just always find it, I don't know, it's not really that interesting at all, but I find it funny that it seems like Foundry tends to fall into patterns of like choosing certain palettes of colors for different maps and sticking with variations of those colors for all the different regions and things that you draw within them. That at 60, this one at 70, update. Do this here. And this side. And there's going to be a lot of nitty gritty to get into with things like walls and that sort of stuff in this scene. And we are almost done with our regions. And so we'll be digging into the walls next. Well, not literally digging into the walls. That's saved for Fridays and Saturdays here with Reaper. When we do return to Moria. We will definitely be digging it tomorrow, but bum. Okay, and then this be at 75. Which means we want this one at 60. No, we don't. We want it at 70. 60, 70? No, just 70. And this one at 80. All right. So that handles all the regions that we need to outline on this map. Oh, nope. I take that back because this over here is actually a little like cliffside entrance type deal. And we definitely want that to be able to be there and be on the map. The question becomes, is it above or below? I kind of like the idea that this is the highest point here. And that it's actually a decent... Excuse me. Weird frog in my throat all of a sudden. But that it's actually a decent height above this sort of central area here. Almost as if, like, if this is the way that the party ends up approaching this area, they're looking down over this whole sort of valley village that's tucked away in the, like, craggy confines of these jagged, like, desert mountains. / canyons. Yep. I like it. So that means I will need to make one final region. Awesome. All right, so ta-da. And that means that this will, from 80 to 90, that means I want to give probably about 20 feet of clearance over the top of this in case I decide to do anything like ceiling tile related. I I don't think that I will, but so we're going to make that 105. Ta-da. All right. All right, we can take out our filters now. And it's just an absolute insane wash of color. Looks kind of neat, actually. But well, now we will go ahead and just go to our handy dandy wall controls, and we will start in on all of the, as I like to call them, sort of infinite height walls that we're going to have in this scene. So all of the stuff that we know is just going to be like in the rock, all of that sort of jazz. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So this is now the point at which I will go to each of the levels, because I always want to make sure before you do any walling, and this is why I always save this, if you're doing a map with levels, you always want to have your level heights firmly established before you start putting in walls, because whatever level you have selected, it will default all of the wall heights, top and bottom, specifically to the heights that you put there. And so you just want to make sure that you're not, accidentally like creating wall heights at the wrong heights for certain levels, because that can also cause you to lose those walls. And what I mean by that is, let's say I had put in any of the walls prior to making my final adjustment of 105. Well, now my wall exists outside this level. And so when I clicked on that level, it would no longer show me the walls there, right? Also, I can take off the edit levels part because we're not editing anything anymore. But so this is also the part where I will come in here and I will go to configure, wall scene, right? Save changes. And you do need to do that on each level. So this is the other reason why I always save the walls for after I have figured out, like gone through, done my sort of region map that's going to control the heights of all my tokens. Oh, and actually, as I say, the heights of all my tokens, I realized that on my upper level here, we'll go back to our region controls for a moment. We will filter to 55 and above. I did not actually put the script in place for any of these. So let me go ahead and get that in there real quick. Is this the one yeah. what I thought. As I was putting in that 65, I was like, wait a minute. I don't think I'm on that one. Ooh. Okay. Right, so now back to walls. And then, of course, for these like outer walls here, right? Or for these walls that are going to block everything, I just use the traditional wall. I can definitely tell that there are going to be several places where we'll use some things like terrain walls, doors, all of that sort of jazz in this scene. So we will definitely be able to demonstrate some of that today. Well, maybe not today, but on this map. And then this map is also going to provide some fun additional elements that I haven't done on some of the other maps. So this is actually going to be the site of part of the ruins of the ancient peoples who used to live here, that the army of giants are after their artifacts, right? And keep in mind, I'm giving it incredibly like dumbed down descriptions because I don't know that anybody here is just looking for a big lore dump on Evandel as a campaign setting. If you are, let me know. I'm happy to go into any of the lore for the setting in depth on stream, off stream, whatever the case may be. All of the Evandel's lore will eventually end up codified and cataloged on my Discord server. So if you do want to check it out, you can always come join the Discord. Got some cool cats over there. We actually have a buddy of mine named Boss. Lore Dump ASMR. Oh, yeah. Here, let me tell you about the history of the world of Evandel. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. If I make it to my 75 follower goal, or my 10 sub goal, maybe the reward is I'll do an ASMR lore dump YouTube video. You know, how about that? Otherwise, I'm happy to talk about any of that sort of stuff on stream, but I don't know that I am specifically looking to do an ASMR stream. I mean, unless, I guess, if that's, you know, if there are enough requests for ASMR stream, I suppose I could do that. But, yeah. So, long story short, like I was saying, they're going after the artifacts. The fuck? I got prize picks ad Twitch apparently knows I like football. I mean, it is probably going to target you based on your browser history, so that would kind of make sense. You know? I ain't betting anything on the Pats versus the Hawks. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that game. So for those who don't know, I am actually a pretty avid football fan. American football, I will add that qualifier, considering I know that we have viewers from all over the world, and our football is not football to a lot of the world. But in any case, I am an avid American football fan. The Seattle Seahawks are playing the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl this year. And yeah, I don't know who. I think I'm uncharacteristically, like, who knew it would take so little time for the Pats not to be the evil empire and to be the, like, plucky underdog again? But that's actually kind of what they feel like. Plus their coach, for those of you who don't know American football, is a gentleman named Mike Vrabel, who, at least by all accounts that I can tell, and the things that I have heard from those who I have met that have met him, he's actually a pretty swell guy, and he seems like a really good coach, you know, so I would like to see them win for those reasons. We like the plucky underdog, for sure. Plucky underdog is always the, like, you know, everybody loves a Cinderella story. I don't know that we could call the New England Patriots a Cinderella story at this point, but, you know. They definitely are not the Belichick-Brady evil empire of football like they used to be. Now that gets to go to Jerry Jones, and he can continue to be the Emperor Palpatine of football, just not successful, unlike Brady and Belichick were. Cue Imperial Martin, dude, for real. But yeah, that's a bunch of American football talk that a lot of people won't get, but where was I at? Oh, right. Talking about elements that this map has that other maps that I have done so far have not necessarily. So you'll notice some of the light fixtures here are more like lantern-like. So this site is essentially going to have actual power, right? Hey! Welcome, Goose. Thank you for the lurk. I appreciate you, Manda. I am sorry that there are not boss fights for you to tell me how many rounds it will take for me to win today. But I am sure that they will be back again in the future. Super tired and enjoying some wine. The weekend has started. Hey, that sounds like a good start to the weekend to me, Manda. Who knows? Maybe I will. We're doing a double header today. Neko and I will be back with American Woman and Chip this evening because our D&D game is still out. So we will actually be back with more multiplayer Baldur's Gate tonight. So who knows? Maybe I will open a bottle of wine and enjoy that myself. But I hope whatever vintage you are enjoying. I am actually, I'm intrigued. What kind of wine do you like, if you don't mind my asking? I know you said you were going to lurk, and so I shouldn't ask you questions. But I worked in the wine industry for a very long time and was a winemaker at one point and did a lot of wine sales, things of that nature. So I'm just always intrigued when I hear people are actually enjoying wine, what they like to enjoy. Sweet sangria that I hate. Right now, organic French Chardonnay. Ooh, okay, nice, nice. Actual Burgundy, like from Burgundy Chardonnay. No, hold. Let me check. Okay, fair. No, no, you're good. You're good. White Burgundies are just some of my favorites as far as when it comes to Chardonnay. Although anything's better than California Chardonnay over oaked buttery nonsense. Apologies to any viewers who enjoy California Chardonnay. But I don't feel bad about that take. What California wine do I like? California Zins can be pretty good. Um, there are good California cabs. Most California cabs, unfortunately, that you get in today's day and age are made with what's called mega purple, which is just absolute garbage. It's essentially, long story short, it's essentially wine concentrate that a ton of California wineries, especially any of your major label California wineries, utilize very heavily in the making of California cabs because it promotes homogeny, right? And they're trying to make a product that you can pick up off the shelf in the grocery store every single time, and it tastes exactly the same every single time. And anybody who understands wine knows that that's not wine. Béziers in the south of France. Oh, okay, nice, nice. I don't think I've ever had any southern French Chardonnay. I'm very intrigued. I hope that it is delightful. And I hope that your glass is helping you relax into your weekend. I am glad that you are done for the day and for the week. And I will let you return to your lurk. Thank you for entertaining my wine questions. Also, for those who don't know, Duck This Goose or Amanda is also a streamer here on Twitch. Hey, you want to talk wine? I might not need to be an alert. I mean, we can talk wine this whole stream if that's what you want to talk about. What kind of wine do you normally enjoy? I was just giving my takes on California wine. Who knew that scene building in Foundry was going to turn into a discussion over wine? But you know, I am always happy. I'm actually a giant. I don't consider myself a wine expert. I consider myself a wine nerd because I just find all aspects of wine fascinating. I no longer work in the industry largely because of the way that the industry works. I'll just put it like that. And at the end of the day, as fascinating as I find it, it's not truly like a passion of mine, even though I do love to discuss and chat on the subject. When it comes to white wine, French Chardonnay, sweet Italian Moscato, semi-dulce Spanish wines. Okay, for sure, for sure. That makes sense. I've had some semi-dulce like Vino Verdes that were very good, which is kind of a Portuguese tradition, but the Spanish tend to do it with Albarino. Very nice. I'm usually as dry as you can get it kind of guy, but when it comes to red, I get to choose Amarone or Ripasso from Italy. Okay, awesome. Amarone is, oh man, Amarones are so good. It's hard to find good Amarones here in the U.S. I mean, they're Italian, but most of the Amarones that we get here, unless you're willing to pay a lot, let's just put it like that, or not the... Yes, Ripasso is the baby brother of Amarone. You are not wrong. Flavor profile of Amarone. So like the note that Amarones are, at least in the like the Somme circles, right? The note that Amarones are most like known for is due to the way that Amarones are aged. Their fruits tend to have a very dried fruit quality, or raisinated quality, as one might say. And that's like a very signature characteristic of Amarones. And I, in general, just love that flavor in wines. And so, yeah, Amarones are definitely one of my favorites of the Italians. Oh, so I'd hate it. Yeah, you probably would hate it. And yes, Amarones do taste like happiness. You are not wrong. You are not wrong. Yes. So yeah, Amarones are, they tend to be, while they are, so this also brings up like an interesting conversation point when it comes to wine, right? So there is what a wine drinker refers to as dry, which is the perceived level of tannin on the palate, typically. So tannin is actually the thing in wine that creates the like moisture stripping astringency that actually like, you know, can make you feel like you licked a desert or something along those lines. Right? And then there's what a winemaker speaks of as dry. And a winemaker considers a wine dry so long as it is below a certain level of sugar or bricks, right? But it will never be happiness for your wallet in store or in restaurant. Oh, yeah. No, in restaurants especially. Oh, my God. I think the last time I had a glass of Amarone in a restaurant, I probably paid like $45 for it. Anyway, we won't need to talk about that. Wine never makes my wallet happy. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Wine is not the cheap buzz. I mean, unless you're going Mad Dog 2020. or Boone's Farm, in which case you're not really drinking wine. You're actually drinking malt liquor, in case you wondered whether it's sold as wine or not. But yeah. So, but Manda is right. Amarone's, so like I was saying, a winemaker considers it dry just based on the sugar level. So it's like Amarone's are dry wines from a winemaking perspective in that they naturally have incredibly low sugar, right? Almost none, if any at all. Usually Amarones are fermented to zero residual sugar. However, their tannic profile is one that is softer, more supple, and so therefore they don't have that same super harsh moisture stripping astringency that you get from something like a Tempranillo, right? Is very common, or a Reserva, right? A Spanish Reserva is going to have much more tannin to it, something along those lines. So last time I was drunk at our music festival here, me and a friend was at the wine bar. I think from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. we split 5 to 6 bottles of Rapasso. Wallet was not happy. I believe your wallet wasn't happy. I mean, after a day like that, though, maybe you didn't remember, at least until the next morning. Raise your hand if you've had that moment before, where you wake up the next day and realize that you spent way more money at the bar the night before than you intended to. My 20s. I'm a very boring person now, though, in general. I don't really party, or I don't know. I just don't like that. Doesn't hold the same like level of fun that it used to for me. Like, man, I was about that life once upon a time. I mean, I remember we used to I used to host the most insane ragers literally every single weekend. And eventually it's just like, I don't know. The air quotes rock star life lost its appeal. I remember the whole evening. Last time I was really hungover was like 11 years ago. Well, I'm glad that it was that long ago for you. I don't know, man. Ever since I got to like late 30s, if I go too hard in the paint the night before, I pay for it super hard. And it just feels like, I mean, man, I remember from my youth nights where I drank more than probably a human being should in one evening, unless one is looking to have alcohol poisoning. And then, I'd wake up the next day, I'd have a little bit of a, hangover, headache, whatever, take some aspirin, drink a cup of coffee, eat a greasy breakfast burrito, you're good to go. Now I just feel like if I get too toe up, I'm out like the whole next day. Same 3 bottle of white, 6 cider, and grogs was just the pre-party. Yeah, no, for real. I never got hungover until I was 26. Hit me like a bat. Yeah, for me, it was like 30. Whenever I turned 30, for some reason, like I could drink, I don't know, I could have a bottle of wine to myself by that point. And sometimes, depending on the wine, oh man, I was paying for it the next day. That was not a fun time. That I can still do if I had food before. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, if I've eaten before and it's good. So that's the other thing that I've noticed, right? Is You can definitely, like, I've always been able to, and people who drink enough wine will like recognize this. Like you can taste the quality of a wine, or at least I feel like I can. Maybe that's just arrogance. I don't know. But like most of those wines, like I was talking about before, like California cabs that are made with super purple, like you can tell they feel heavy on the palate in like not a full bodied way, like in a weird, like synthetic-y, almost like motor oil kind of way. They're just, you can tell cheap wine from good wine. Like when it's quality, when it's clean, you can feel the difference. There's like, even if it's full bodied, there's like a lightness to it on the palate, that it just doesn't feel like it can feel full without feeling unnecessarily heavy. And so like, now, if I drink good wine, I can definitely, I can have a bottle of wine and I can be totally fine the next day. But if I drink anything that's like, you can tell they cheaped out, or they added RS to compensate, because that's the other thing, is a lot of companies, a lot of winemakers will add residual sugar, even though it's not technically residual sugar anymore. That's what it gets called still, because sugar acts kind of like distortion on the palate, in that, like, distortion on a guitar can, while it sounds super cool, there's also a lot that distortion can do to kind of cover up poor technique, right, when it comes to playing guitar. And sugar is kind of the same way with wine. Call my semi-dulce my chit-chat wine, nice and easy and enjoyable, like Tempranillo, Dad's favorite, a chit-chat wine. Yeah, for sure. I get that. Just goes down nice and light, easy to drink. We call them, we're much less classy about it here, and so we refer to wines like that as porch pounders, at least here in Texas. Because you can go outside on the porch, you can just slam a whole bottle of that and feel great. That'll be the first and last time I do that accent on the channel again. Chit chat was my translation that sounded nice. Yeah, fair. We're keeping it classy here. Pinkies out. All day, every day. I can never remember which kind of wine I like. You all, wait, are you talking about like which kind of dry wine you like? Because there are some dry wines that you like, that are, again, I'm referring to them as like dry because they're technically dry. And that's, I think about wines in winemaking terms. I mean, I know you like Merlot, or at least Merlot dominant blends. You liked, why brain? Well, Malbec. You really liked. There was that Argentinian. It was a Malbec Zinfandel, and what was it? It was Malbec. It was Zin, and I wasn't Cab. Oh, my brain. I'm not going to be able to remember. Carmenere. There was that blend that we had from South America that you really liked. Talk shit wine is the literal translation of what I call them. That's awesome. Talk shit wine. Feeling spicy? Have some talk shit wine. That's great. I love that. So basically, it's the gossip wine, the chismoso wine. My Chardonnay wasn't my plan to drink this evening. Has another bottle I wanted to have, but I had started this one already. Yeah, no, I feel that. And that is the thing. If you're drinking good wine, it's got a short shelf life. And so yep, once you've opened a bottle, you pretty much are committing, and that's I feel like why I drink so little, cuz usually if I do drink, I want to drink wine. But I very rarely want to have a drink multiple days in a row. And I am too stingy, frugal, Jewy. It's my ethnicity, so it's okay. I can call myself that. And so, like, I just can't stand the thought of opening a bottle of wine to drink one glass and then throwing the rest of it away. Having a small bottle of Moet. I wanted this evening. Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. Forever a wine noob. I mean, everybody's new. I mean, wine is also one of those things that it's like, I think part of me likes it because it's the most just ridiculously indulgent piece of knowledge that somebody can have, because outside of talking to other people about wine, it's just completely useless information other than understanding how fermentation works, right? And then that could be useful in a situation where it's like, oh, okay, well, I need to know how to make fuel or something of that nature. I can tell the difference between good and bad bourbon, but not wine. Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. But it's all about, like, you know, when it comes to the quality of spirits of any type, I think that a lot of it just comes down to how much time you've spent with something like that, right? Like, I have drank a lot of wine over the course of my life now at this point, and so I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, really smooth champagne. It's dry, but not as dry as other brands. Yeah, so it's dry, but it's not considered a brut, which are the driest of the champagnes. That's the ultra moisture stripping astringency stuff, which I love bruts, but like mimosa kind of champagne or the fancy kind. Well, I mean, that largely depends on the Moet. That can depend on the vintage and things like that. But Moet is definitely a higher end. I'm actually probably mispronouncing that terribly. It might be just Moet. Now that I think about it, French pronunciations are so rough. I have down all the names of the grapes. I can pronounce all of those, but names of individual producers and things like that. I spent too much time growing up in a trailer park to develop wine brain cells. That's not true. Anybody can, but the question is like, A, do you want to put the time and effort into doing so? Like, I don't know if I hadn't actually ended up working in the wine industry for as long as I did, that I would have developed the level of knowledge that I have. because I was perfectly content to just be able to tell what was good and what wasn't, like by tasting something and then deciding if I wanted it or didn't based on that, right? Until I was actually working in the industry. Once you're working in the industry, then it's a different story. Oh no, don't connect there. That is not at all what I want you to do. Okay. People are always surprised when I tell them Texas wine industry is a thing. Yeah, it is. It's a good thing too. I mean, that Texas is the wine industry that I worked in, so maybe there is some bias there. I don't actually think much of the state that I live in, although that is mostly based on political reasons and little else. Is a brute, but it's not the almondish. Not as almondy-ish for me than an Alexandre Bonnet champagne. Okay. See, the Moët that we get over here, it doesn't carry the brut appellation, the Moët that we get here in the U.S. Or Moet that we get here in the U.S. Or at least the ones that I have had. I will say that my experience with Moet is not in-depth, so. Sparkling wines are probably, in general, my biggest gap in knowledge. I would say I know more about reds than I do anything else, then whites, and then sparkling. But that also has to do with because I worked with so little sparkling over the course of my time working with wine. Cheap peach sangria forever, my fave. Yeah. So I worked someplace where we would make, at one point, where we would make a peach sangria that was just... I won't go into the details of what we put into it, but essentially, like, this stuff was... We would bottle it, we would have to sell it refrigerated and fresh, you know, but, I mean, we would... It was pretty much like the sugariest fruit juices you can possibly imagine. Some sparkling water, flavored sparkling water, and then peach. Yeah, it was lightly carbonated peach Kool-Aid that happened to have, I think by the time it was all said and done, it was like 4% to 6% alcohol by volume, depending on the batch that day. And were there differentiations? Yes, there were, because it was also the dumping ground for wine that we were no longer going to use in the tasting room. This was not the practice that I established, nor would it have been the one that I would have wanted, but I worked with what I had at the time. Not for me either. I started to buy champagne for New Year's. Noticed that none like the bottles I had, so I started to buy small bottles of different ones to find the ones that I like. Don Simon Sangria, Spain's cheap gem. €1 a bottle? Whoa. Oh, God, yes. No, we do. The fact that it's even allowed to be called wine actually upsets me. It shouldn't. I don't even work in the industry anymore. But it's like peanut butter and jelly wine, come the literal on, man. Like, oh my God. Just... And listen, I'm not trying to be. I mean, it is me being a snob. I can't pretend that it's not me being a snob. And but oh god, sorry, just peanut butter and jelly wine place. I just can't. That is like the mixed drinks in Sweden. We're calling it wine? Nah, leave. Yeah, no, for real. For real. Get the literal out with this nonsense. I do not accept. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, you go to a bar and, what is it? Like raspberry schnapps and Frangelico tastes like peanut butter and jelly. Sure. You want to do that as a shot, or they've got that, like, whatever, that god-awful peanut butter whiskey that they have now. I don't like flavored liquors. Since this conversation is now on a lot of different booze topics. So you will find that I have a predisposition towards hating most flavored liquors and liqueurs. Just to be gone, for real. Leave the earth, leave the universe. Yeah, flavored liquor is nasty. But it's like, if you did that as a shot, if you did that like peanut butter whiskey and like raspberry schnapps or something like that, and you're doing like a peanut butter and jelly shot, like, do I want it? No. Not only no, but hell no. But do I at least get it? Like, sure. But peanut butter and jelly wine, I can't. I just can't do it. And yeah, the fact that it's even allowed to be called wine is disgusting. I can down Jaeger from the bottle and I wouldn't touch that wine. Dude, I love Jaeger, but I also love anything licorice. Although I have never had, okay, so I know that, Amanda, I know that you are not German, but you are significantly closer in proximity than I am. So maybe you can so there is, and I know that I could probably just look this up online, but you know, it's like, how much do I trust the internet? I have been told and never bothered to try to confirm or deny that apparently, oh, dude, Ouzo? Yes, Ouzo is my jam. I love Ouzo. Like, Ouzo and soda, like, not like Coke, just like sparkling water as like an aperitif, is one of the most refreshing beverages I've ever had in my entire life. It's my anti-jam. Well, no, I like it straight too, but that's what I'm saying. If you do it as an aperitif, you just do it with sparkling water, like just plain sparkling water, no flavor whatsoever, over ice, super cold, I mean, dude, it's so refreshing. I also like it straight. Don't hear what I'm not saying. It's great as a shot, but it's also just so great as like a palate cleanser. No, don't mix it. Fireball and Dr. Pepper all day. Oh, yep. That is your drink. Only anise thing you mix is absinthe. Nah, I mean, I definitely, there are some, like I said, I really like it because, I mean, just sparkling water to me is not mixing it. You're just opening it up. And even in Greece, where Ouzo is from, it's like not uncommon for it to be drank with sparkling mineral water. But yes, I will agree. Absinthe is well, there's also like the traditional way to do absinthe, right? So I actually, my start in working in alcohol was actually at a very nice, high-end like cocktail bar and absinthe bar. It was one of the first, it was right after absinthe finally became legal here in the US. And it was an absinthe bar and prohibition-style cocktail bar. Straight fireball. When you've been queuing in -20 Celsius, -4 Fahrenheit. I mean, I can't do it even then. I can't do fireball. I just can't do it. The cinnamon, I don't know, something about it. It's like instant heartburn. It's like painful. But yeah, so I worked at one of the very first absinthe bars that opened up in where I was living at the time, Austin. You just get warming it. Yeah, except for it's like painful warm inside. Not fun warm. It's like I feel like I'm going to vomit fire. Like, and it's just unpleasant. I don't know. The flavor's fine. The flavor just tastes like red hot candies. But dude, that stuff will instantly give me heartburn and it won't go away for hours. Okay, I need to look at the regions so that I can see, and we're going to filter out everything above 35 feet. Nope, not 350, because then I'll see it all. Take that back. We'll filter out everything above 30. Right? Boom. 25. Fine. Okay. So, trying to figure out the wall heights for these parts really quick. Okay, so that does extend to here and here. So, there we go. But yeah, and they actually did it the original, like, traditional way of serving absinthe as well, where you actually drip the ice water over an actual piece of like rock sugar that's on the little like grate over the glass to open it up. And yeah, no, it was pretty cool. That was actually, like I said, my first foray into alcohol, the alcohol industry. Had some amazing absinthe drinks in London at an underground cabaret bar. That sounds awesome. I would love to find a bar like that. Yeah. So they have, well, if you ever visit Texas, which I don't know that I encourage anybody to, but if you do and you go to Austin, there is a wonderful bar there whose name I cannot remember, but just search cabaret bar and you will find it. It's unfortunately on 6th Street. And so you have to deal with the madness that is the crowds of 6th Street. But they have some absinthe drinks. Now, the one that I worked at is also still in existence. It's over on 4th Street, a wonderful spot called Pache. If you ever find yourself in Austin, then you can... I don't know why I felt the need to, like, measure those two different things. I'm going to come back here and have to manually set all these heights. Anyway, I just need to draw the wall. But yeah, Pache was the place that I worked at. It is also still there. I went back and visited not a couple years back. Unfortunately, some of the standards, I think it changed ownership, and some of the standards that they had for the quality of their products I don't think have been maintained in the same way, but wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the same experience that you would have gotten once upon a time. Maybe in a few years we need to find this bar for Pride Month. I'm a Viking built 5'7" Scandi. Give me a crowd and I can scare them away. I mean, yeah, probably, maybe. Who knows? I mean, you don't look that scary from seeing you on camera, but, you know, one can do a lot, with the tone and pitch of one's voice and one's stance when relative to others. Protect me against the crowds. I'm tiny 5'1". Neko is a short king. I feel like I'm on the like short end of tall or the tall end of average. I'm 6'3". Well, I'm 6'3" when I stand up straight. Really, at this point, I'm probably 6'2" most of the time. Let's be real. Posture has declined as I have gotten older. In heels and I will rule. There you go. That's awesome. Very short, but very king. Yes, this is true. This is a true statement. Although a lot of monarchs over the years were short, you know? My parents are happy I stopped growing as a kid. I got tall fast. Has a cousin. She is tall. Oh, okay. Like tall, tall. My dad has a cousin. She is close to 6'4". Oh, wow. That is tall. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, I'm the same height as the height did weird things in my family line. It skipped my uncle and my mom. My grandfather was tall. I'm the same height that he was, but he was actually the shortest of his three brothers. His tallest brother was 6'8". I demand piggyback rides from this cousin so I know what tall is. Dad's uncle was 6'7". Yeah, for sure. Yeah, see, and this is why I say, like, to me, I know some people that are like 6'3" is tall, and I'm just like, I don't know. I grew like, it also I think has something to do with like where I like, predominantly went to school and stuff like that here in Texas, and it's the hill country is what it's colloquially referred to as here. Is kind of like the land of the giants. I mean, I was like very much average height compared to most of the like student body that I went to school with. But when I like lived in San Antonio when I was younger, I was significantly taller than the majority of the people I was going to school with. So it's like, for me, it feels like I'm average. Some people tell me I'm tall, but I know so many people that are like 6'5", 6'7", that sort of thing, that it's like 6'3" to 6'2", depending on the day. It doesn't really feel that tall. Brother is 6'5". My sister, his twin, is 5'3", if I'm kind. That's funny. He took all the height genes. He ran away with them. No. You are tall. I'm dwarf in comparison, and me, the baby sister, is in the middle one. Yeah, for sure. So you guys have the whole spectrum. So, I mean, it's great for photos. You know, you can do so much with staging. You could all stand in front of each other and still see faces. No, just kidding. That's terrible. Or you can stand next to each other and look like cell phone bars. Hydrate. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that, actually, because I have had lots of caffeine and have not had much in the way of water today, so I should hydrate. Oh my god. What? So do I just have to like chug this bottle of water now? All right. I've got half of a 16-ounce bottle of water left. All right, that's enough with you. There. Bottle of water done. Google 16 ounce. Oh yeah, what is that in milliliters? 500 milliliters. It is a 500 milliliter bottle of water. I'm just being thoughtful. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I really should drink more water in general, so. And the bottle of water has now been chugged. I have 70k points. What else do I spend it on? Well, I'm gonna not encourage you to look through the list of all the things you can spend it on, because now I'm terrified of what you would pick. So I put some things in there that I'm already considering maybe taking out, but we'll see. I already have, but I respect and love you all. Well, thank you. Thank you. We don't use milliliters to a lot of things, but centiliters, so close to half a liter of water. Yes. Yeah. It's about half a liter. You're not wrong. Yeah, here everything, I don't know why they decided, because like they put um they put metric measurements for volume only on all liquids that you purchase here in the US. Well, yeah, no, I mean it's easy, so that God, I wish we would just use the damn metric system. So much better. Anyway, yeah, but you know, we still use whoever. That's what really, actually, that's the question that I have, is who the literal F. I mean, if you ever wanted any evidence, right, they call it the imperial system of measurement, right? And so the only thing that I'm left to believe is that it was the monarch of some empire who came up with it. And if you ever wanted any more evidence that a lot of, like, you know, former rulers and things like that of nations and all of that sort of stuff were from crazy inbred lines of royal families, all you have to do is look at the imperial system of measurement, and that will tell you everything you need to know. Oh, well, let's just make this one 12 of this. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. What? Like, ugh. Yeah, well, I mean, they're the ones we got the imperial system from, and then they converted to metric, and we decided, no, we suddenly love our roots of the country that we had to fight for independence from. Dude, don't ask me why the US is still using the imperial system. I don't know. I can't tell you. It makes no sense. It is the inferior system of measurement in just every way, from practicality, from it just, ugh. And that's why it's called the imperial system, because the sun never sets in the British Empire. Now, I have a ton of British friends. I actually love England. I would love to go to England. All things considered, I would actually love to live in England at some point. If that were ever possible, I think that would be great. All the people in England are like, no, please stay the fuck out. But we also have the 12 thing, but it's more from farming times. I go to London at least once a year. I'm so jealous. I have been to London exactly twice, and both times were to change planes at Heathrow Airport, and it was on my way to and from Helsinki. That was the only time I have ever been to London, and I would like to go. I would like to go to... I actually would just love to spend... Like I said... Would like to live there at some point. I have this very romantic dream of like living in the English countryside. Why? I don't know. It just looks so much prettier than our countryside does. Am I over romanticizing it? Yes, 100%. And I will continue to do so. Helsinki, that's a lovely place. Yeah, no, Helsinki was really cool. I wish that I could have gotten to see more of it. So I was actually there because I got flown in by the producer of a tabletop role-playing game, RJ Berger. He produced the Stalker role-playing game, which if you were a fan of like weird fiction, like weird science fiction, that sort of stuff. It's based on the book A Roadside Picnic, just Roadside Picnic, which is actually one of my favorite sci-fi novels. Oh, and I'm in an ad break now, so nobody can hear me. Well, then we'll save this for once once the viewers can hear again. Let me see here. I want regular wall back for a minute. All right, and we are back from the ad break. So yeah, I had another YouTube channel many moons ago that was focused on tabletop RPG content, mostly just running live plays. More than anything else, and one of which was for a game called Stalker, which is a tabletop role-playing game by a lovely gentleman named RJ Berger that uses the flow system. It's actually a diceless role-playing game that is focused pretty much strictly on storytelling and decision-making. And it's really cool. The setting is, kind of a quasi post-apocalyptic situation. In any case, I ran some games on that channel, and he liked what I ran enough that he actually approached me and flew me out to a gaming convention in Helsinki to run some Stalker games for him there on site. And it was a cool experience, but I was staying at the hotel where the convention was being held. And so I didn't really get to go and explore much because I also just did not have much time outside of the convention hours where I was like actively running games. And then like by the time I was done, I'm exhausted. And so I got to see some parts of the city. I got to see clearly the trip to and from the airport and everything like that to the convention center. And I got to explore the area around, not the convention center, the hotel. I got to explore the area around the hotel and everything like that. And it was really cool. It was so pretty. I would love to go back and actually be able to spend some real quality time in Helsinki and be able to explore more of it. I want to live in London, Paddington, but I need to sell my soul and sell my feet pics or something. Yeah, I mean, that is the one thing. My understanding is London is not cheap. I don't know that I want to live in London proper. Like, I would like to be within an hour's drive of London, which is actually relatively easy to do, because the UK is very small compared to where I currently live. And it's like, I have friends who live over there that, they think it's absolute insanity that I can drive 6 hours in any direction and not even leave the state that I live in here in the US. And, they'll tell me they could drive across the entire country in that same amount of time. It's like, yeah, you could. Not us. Okay, actually, I should not do this the dumb way. Time to buy a goat farm in the London countryside. Rent for a small place there is like $2,000 for 2 weeks. In rest, wow. So it's like $4,000 a month. Yeah, in rent. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, it's I think she's referring to like it's the equivalent of 2,000 US, I think. Please correct me if I'm mistaken. If you mean pounds or if you are speaking of euros, then feel free to correct me. Yeah, for a nice small apartment with one bedroom. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That is 5.4K US. Yep. Yep. Yeah, if you're talking about pounds to dollars, for sure. Yeah, I tried to do the pound. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So Manda was already translating it for us. All right. So I am going to go ahead and set these. So we're going to set the proximity to 10 feet on these guys. And then I just realized that as much as I am enjoying this conversation about wine and travels and everything else. Manda, you have been wonderful and amazing. It is time for me, if I'm going to have any time to get anything done around the house today before we stream Baldur's Gate again this evening, to call it for the day. So I will, let's see here. I see French Taco is on, and I think we are going to give him a raid. We haven't raided Taco in a minute. For those who aren't aware, well, if you want to be an hour from London, check the prices. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we are going to give French Taco a raid. I will soon head to bed, so when I wake up, I might jump into the stream again. Yeah, absolutely. Always welcome, Manda. Always happy to see you here. And if you do sleep, I hope you sleep well. But yeah, we will go ahead and raid over to the lovely French Taco. He is doing some Arc Raiders, so we can see if he is raiding the Lost Ark. And thank you to all who were here for the stream today. I appreciate you all immensely. You are part of what makes this channel so great, hanging out with me while I work on these maps for my upcoming D&D campaign that will also be streamed here on the travel, on the channel. But whether you find yourself in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, I hope that it is a most excellent one for you. And we are going to get this raid rolling, and I am going to talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much, and I'll see you.